Welcome back to Hue Saturation Adjustment Layer techniques, and we've already made a nice selection. We've chosen a photograph to utilize, and I want to hold down either my command or my control key going into the channels panel where the selection is preserved, and click on the thumbnail to get my selection back, or you can always go back to the select drop down menu and load the selection. Okay, either way is going to work out just fine. Now if I go back to the layers area and I make an adjustment, I'm making an adjustment basically on the beak itself. So if I turn on the quick mask mode, you can see here if I do any adjusting, it's going to be to the beak currently. So I don't want to do that. Let's turn that off. You can toggle that on and off as you go as needed. And if I go ahead and inverse that, that's actually what I want. I want the rest of it to be open. So I'm going to go select and then choose inverse. And instead of inside where the beak is, I want to preserve the beak and change everything else. So let's look at quick mask mode just one more time. Yeah, I'm preserving or protecting the beak area, and you can see here I might even go in at some point to adjust the selection a little further, but for our purposes this is fine. And then the rest is open to be affecting with the adjustment layer. So in the layers panel, and we want to go back to the layers panel, go to your adjustment layers button to create a fill or adjustment layer, and what we want to choose is hue and saturation. Hue saturation is an interesting one. I use this when I need some interesting results. I've got a photo that's not quite working for me, or I need some interesting changes to it. Okay, a photo, it looks natural as is, but sometimes when you change the hue, if you change the slider here, that's going to take whatever colors they are, and they're going to change the color range into a different colorization. Okay, it looks more natural this way, okay, but it's something that you can change it any way it is that you like. You also have access to changing the saturation. And now saturation is, if you bring the slider down, that drains it of its color and neutralizes it. It mixes it with other colors opposite each other, and then it drains it of color. So if I go all the way down, it's basically black and white. When I push the saturation up, okay, that intensifies the color a great deal. Let's go all the way up. It gets ridiculous. Everything gets really harsh. You can see here towards the bottom underneath, there's a lot of color that's still in there, and now it intensifies that. Now, many of you folks are new to Photoshop, and I would caution you about saturation. You may be thinking, oh, my picture is dull, and so I want to push the saturation up. That's fine for something you're going to view on screen, but if you're thinking that it will intensify the color when you're working in a commercial print setting, like say you're going to be outputting this for a brochure, a poster, a magazine cover, whatever, pushing the saturation, the only thing that does really is makes your picture have much more ink coverage, and that darkens it. It does not brighten it. It doesn't do brightening at all. Okay, so saturation means more color, more intense color, and with ink on paper, we've got too much ink, and it becomes blobby, and actually makes, in some cases, it very dark, and you won't get the results you want. So be careful about saturation. Okay, I use it a lot of times to bring the saturation down. Okay, light and dark, well, overall it just lightens and darkens. Okay, so this is kind of like going into screen mode or multiplier darken mode in our blending. Okay, so sometimes you need that, and I don't use it all the time. If I got a flat area of color, then hue and saturation and lightness all together can change a color in a great way. All right, also can colorize the photo. Now, I've got a lot of natural colors all in here. You don't realize that it's not just white and red, but there's a lot of color actually within, the folds of skin here. So if I go ahead and colorize it, let's say we bring this up to natural color for saturation, and we're with the red tones. But look at that. It's just making all of the shadows and everything also more of a reddish tone. Now, colorizing a photograph can give you a really nice effect if you're looking to make it appear as if it is all belonging to the same thing. You can colorize a picture. So I'm going to turn that off. It gets us back to the original. And I'm going to make this bird so that, well, let's see. Let's make, going towards orange, because orange is Professor Chisholm's favorite color, and it's also the color of our program and uniform. So we're going to do orange. And saturation, I'm just going to leave it alone in this case. All right, we're good to go. Now, let's say I want to make it so that beak is just neutral no matter what. I don't like all of that color. So what I want to do is go back to my channels, and I'm going to go ahead and click back on the beak. You notice that in my layer, since I have this layer chosen, that in the channels, that appears as a mask. Okay, that's temporarily there. If I choose the background, or in other words, leave that that layer, then in the channels, bam, it's gone. Now that's the very reason why I like to preserve a selection, as opposed to just make a selection and mask with it right away before saving it. I like to preserve these things so that nothing goes away by accident. All right, let's go back to select our beak selection, Control or Command, and click on the thumbnail, and I've got it back. And this is what I want. I want to have the beak open at this time now. So go back to your layers, another hue saturation adjustment, and I'm going to bring the saturation on it down. And you can see that area is becoming much, much more neutral. Now I don't want it to look fake like it is black and white here all the way down. So I want a little bit of natural color in it. So let me bring it down part way or almost the whole way, and we're good to go. Now if you want to experiment with other parts of the picture and make masks so that maybe you want to mask everything out except for the eyeball, make a selection of the eyeball, and then you can inverse it and do another, hue saturation, colorize the eyeball a different color if you want to. Save everything up as a Photoshop file, and you can experiment several times with this or other pictures. I'm going to make this so that this is the layers version of it, and save it amongst all of my Photoshop examples. Okay, so there we go. Make sure it is a Photoshop file because we want to save these and preserve your layers before ever preparing it for print or some other situation. Anyways, have fun with the hue and saturation adjustment. We'll see you in another tutorial.